last session, which is the hardest session to keep everybody's attention. So I will try to make it as exciting as possible. So this is called Increasing Reading Fluency, Comprehension, and More. If this is not the correct session that you want to be in, you can head back to the flyer and click the right one. But otherwise, if you're here, I am very excited that you are here. Okay, hold on a second. Fixing something here quick. I don't know how to do that, Christine. Should just talk not as loud. Okay, all right, oops. Okay, so just a little bit about me. I am the program manager for Southwest ABE in Marshall. I have listed my email there and our website. So if you want to try to reach our reading skills website today and you don't have the direct one, you could definitely always head to our home website and it is listed on there. All right, so today on our agenda, we have, the original reading skills for today's adults, and then we have the revamped one, and then we're going to talk about a special project that was based off of our program, and then we're going to hear from two teachers who currently use the reading skills for today's adults program, and then we're going to talk about how to implement it into your program. All right, we're going to start off with a poll. I believe Christine or Carla is going to pull it up. But the poll is, have you ever used reading skills for today's adults? So either yes, I love it, or no, but I'm excited to. So I'll just give everybody about a minute to complete that.
Oh, we have some folks who haven't used it yet. Yes.
Yes, we're going to try to snag you today. All right.
All right.
So that was pretty close.
Let me end there. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Exciting. I'm always surprised to see who hasn't used it yet, but then at the same time, I'm always surprised at who is using it. All right. Thank you. All right. Well. Okay, so we're going to go to the original reading skills for today's adults. So how did it all begin? And it began with this lovely lady here, Pat Thomas, and who Christine has had a lot of experience with. And feel free to chime in, Christine, if you want to chime in anything here. But Pat Thomas was my predecessor. So I took over her position here as the program manager for Southwest ABE. She was with ABE from 1999 to 2018. And so she retired about 2 years ago. I was lucky enough to be trained under her for about 3 months before she officially entered retirement. But don't you worry, she still calls me or emails me on anything that she needs. So and she keeps telling me that if I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing, she's going to come and kick my butt. So I always have that threat hanging over me. And I'm sure, Christine, you have the same thing too. She started off as a teacher. And the funny story was she said that she used to teach in a bar. And the reason she taught in a bar was the small town that she taught in, they either had a bar or a church. And a lot of the students that she worked with said they'd probably burn if they went into a church. So they would meet at a bar. Not really your typical conventional place to teach classes, but that's where she started. And so she was a teacher, she taught, and then she eventually went over to program manager and did that for quite a few years. She is quite the innovator. She has such amazing ideas that most people wouldn't think about. She's always thinking outside of the box because she really believed that, everybody's in their own silos and that we shouldn't always stay in our silos and we should go and explore and help each other out because especially in a rural area like this, we don't have a lot of resources out here. So we need to work together. We need to pull together our finances or our funds and try to make things happy for the good of our students, the people that we serve. Obviously now she's retired, but she still she still likes to get her hands in things and see it because she was really passionate about it. So it's really hard to actually retire and stay away from it. So. All right, so the original reading skills for today's adults began in 2002, and Pat had told me that the reason they started it was there's a local turkey plant here called Turkey Valley, and they had closed down, or no, it wasn't Turkey Valley. I'm sorry. There was one before that. It closed down, and because it closed down, we lost a lot of our students, low enrollment. And so they had, money to spend, but they didn't have the hours for teachers to be able to teaching. So she asked her staff, well, what can we do to use this money in this time right now that we kind of are in a lull? And so there was a teacher that was inspired by the Read Naturally program. And if any of you are familiar with K-12 system, they use this in school systems as teaching students how to read. And so the teacher kind of based it off of that program. But also, if you look at any kind of those content for really low ESL students, you'll notice that the skills are right there teaching students how to read, but the actual content and the topics are very child. So you don't want, your adults are going to want to learn how to read if they're learning about what is the cat doing, the cat's in the hat, things like that. So she wanted topics that were going to be important to or relatable to our adults. And so that was how the Reading Skills for Today's Adults was born. And it was funded by grants. If you go on our website there, they usually show the grants. And then also there was a need for a literacy product. So like I said, there weren't a lot of reading programs out there that had adult topics. And so this was kind of a need that they needed, and it was kind of perfect timing to be able to do that. This is what the original one looks like. So the ones who still use it, I'm pretty sure this is what you are very, very familiar with. Okay, so also in the original Reading Skills for Today's Adults, there are 347 stories. There are 8 reading levels, and the levels range from 0.7 to 8. Adult relevant topics such as government, employment, etc. So things that your adults actually want to read about and they care about. Because if they're reading about, kid things, they won't really care about it. Because if you know what I mean, you're going to pick something up to read because you're interested in what it's about, not because you need to acquire that skill. And then when they were making this, they used research-proven strategies, such as repeated reading, guided oral reading, building fluency, and comprehension skills. All right, so back to this page. This is what you see right now. If you still have the old one bookmarked, just be sure that you go and bookmark our new website, because I am going to be shutting down this one near the end of 2021 because it costs us to keep this website running. So right now we're trying to work to reroute people over to the new one. But if you haven't yet and you're here today, make sure you go to our website, and under there, I think it says, forget if it's on the top there somewhere, and I don't remember exactly what the drop-down box is, but you'll be able to find our new one on there. Matt has labeled it clearly. So make sure you bookmark this, because this old one is eventually going to disappear, and we'd hate for you to miss this out. So, but if you forget, you can definitely get a hold of Christine or I, and we will direct you to the new website. All right. So we had the old reading skills for a while, and as CCRS became implemented through the state of Minnesota, we realized that that program was outdated. It was not CCRS aligned. So Pat somehow got Christine on board. And Christine, I don't know if you want to share the story about how Pat got you in on this program here.
It's not really. I mean, one of the things is Pat had been trying to get me to work on some kind of a project for a long time. I'd known her since I was a brand new teacher in ABE back in '97. And I just happened to say to her many, many times, like, Reading Skills for Today's Adults is great. It would be really wonderful if we updated. The texts are getting outdated, the pictures, it's not CCRS aligned. And she said, fine, then do it. So, and fortunately, as I tell most people, my 2 writers, Stephanie and Lisa McCallum, they did so much of the work, and they were amazing, and they just wrote and wrote and wrote. So they really are the stars of this project.
Yeah, and we're very, very lucky to have Christine and Stephanie and then her team come on this, because we wouldn't be able to do it without them. So we're really, really lucky. All right, so the additions that Christine and Stephanie added was more vocabulary, language activities, speaking and listening activities, multiple choice text dependent questions, and writing prompts. All right, and then some other features of the reading skills for today's adults is the stories are in Word format, and that way it allows you to be able to download, excuse me, download and adapt. And you can also download the supplements. We do have a Creative Commons license on it. So that means that you can download, you can alter, you can print, you just can't make any money off it. We do have, and I'll talk about it later, but we do have a collaboration with a company for profit on there. But we get emails all the time, inquiries about if people can adapt it, and you definitely can. So if, for instance, in the supplement, there are multiple different sections on it. You can break it apart and create your own lessons. You can put it on Google form, whatever you want to do, you can definitely do that. You don't need permission from us. That's why we made it downloadable. All right, so this is what the new website looks like. Much cleaner look than the old one. I love Pat, but the one thing that she has amazing ideas, but she's not all about how things look. She's all about delivering the information. And then me, I come in, I like things to look very presentable, friendly, because we have teachers that use this, we have students that use this. So I want to make sure that it's a clean format. And so when Pat started this, much better we had some people work on it and they were great visionaries on it to bring Pat's dream to life in a more clear cut version. So if what I have circled here is this is the levels of all that we have here. So as you can see, we actually went up higher levels. And if you click on one of these levels, it will drop down and it will break down the levels, level 3 and 4. And then when you go down to, let's say I clicked on level 3, it will give you the stories here. So Christine put it in a chronological kind of level order. So that means that the easiest of level 3 starts at the top, and as you progress down, it gets harder. Now, just a side note, which Christine listed in the chat here, is, really quick before we get to that, but this is just kind of how, if you're starting up, how to use our reading skills for today's adult program is the pre-reading, the timed, how to do this time reading, understanding and writing, and then the final time reading, which I'll explain a little bit more. But what I want to tell you is that to make sure you understand that these levels are not grade levels. They are not equivalent. So I put some of the charts here for you to kind of understand a little bit. So when you test your students, you kind of figure out their Lexile level, then you can kind of gauge at what level they are there. And here's another section. And this is actually found in the Reading Skills for Today's Adults website under resources and placement charts. So you will be able to find all these charts on there if you forgot what it was. But Christine, I don't know if you want to explain a little bit more about these levels.
Yeah, we separated these into 16 levels as part of some work we were doing with a company out east. But every single one of these texts, I Lexiled them, and then I did an ATOS score to put them in order. You're not going to see a huge difference between like a reading at the beginning of the level and at the end, but readability wise, as far as measuring it quantitatively, there were some differences. But the placement here included on the website under resources, a reminder of the ranges of CCRS bands. Hold on a moment.
It's got dogs in the back. Yes, Rebecca, these charts are on the website. So if you go to the top right, you drop down the box to I think more, and it'll be under resources. And then there'll be.
I'm sorry.
Nope, you're fine.
No, my female Scotty decided she wanted to talk about reading skills for today's adults, but she's not invited. And then, also by CCRS levels, so you can see 1 through 16 covers from level A down, touching very loosely into the very beginning of E at the end. If you want to go to the next slide. Yes, the charts are on the website under resources. You might be wondering why ESL 1 and ESL 2 are shaded. That's because
as most of you know, level A is an enormous level, CCRS level A. It's from not having any print knowledge to being able to read in short paragraphs, very short paragraphs. So what we found is for ESL 1 and ESL 2, it's still too high. Even the first level 1 of reading skills for today's adults has short paragraphs of sentences. So it's definitely something to work up to, and you can use it however you'd like, but we're finding that high beginning ESL is probably a good place to start, at least for the comprehension pieces. For fluency, students, you know, their grade level ability or their ability from oral reading to print reading can be different. So,
All right, thanks, Christine. All right, I'm going to help you maneuver the website a little bit here. So when you click on one of the passages, and we get questions about this all the time, but you're probably wondering what these numbers are on here. And some people asked us, well, how come the first line is 0 and then the next one is 11? So what these numbers are is that this is for if you want to do fluency check. So this line here, or this next line, tells you how many words were in the previous line. And obviously there was no previous line before, so that's why this starts with 0. And then I will show you actually how to do a fluency check. And this is more used in K-12. So if you don't have, you know, kind of that K-12 background, if you haven't done a fluency check before, you won't know what it is. But how you do that is, I got my video here. All right, so the students will read for 60 seconds. And then as they're reading, you will mark off any words that they missed. So for example, here they said, cause was cows, and then so on. And so as you mark through it, when you're done with the 60 seconds, you also need to mark off where they stopped. All right, so right here is where they stopped. And on that line, it says 91, but obviously they didn't read the whole line. So you're going to take 1 away. So, so they read 90 words, but you also need to go back and subtract any words that they read incorrectly. So they read 7 words incorrectly. You're going to subtract that by 90 and you get 83. So they can read 83 words per minute. And this is a good way to check. And you always want to do it as a cold reading. So you don't want to give them a chance to read this beforehand. This should be something that they've never read before. And then if there's an instance where they've read this several times, that the passage is too short for that 60 minutes, what you can do is have them start over again. But just make sure you mark it if they you know, missed a word again, or if they missed this one again, you know, maybe circle it a second time and then really mark off for this. So if they finish it, tell them to start over again. And if it's a really short passage and I do it, I always make sure I tell the student ahead of time to just read over again, because otherwise they could be losing precious seconds that they could have read it over again. So just kind of keep that in mind.
I am putting something in the chat box about measuring fluency. Some of you or many of you may have seen that Maren Frank has done some work with reading fluency as far as measuring fluency for adults. And I'm putting a link here that she has some resources for doing so, even virtually. If you at some point get a chance to do a quick fluency assessment with a student, Maren has some great ideas and resources.
Yes, thank you, Christine. Yeah, and fluency check is really easy to do, and you don't have to do too much math, because I don't like math and I can do this, so you can do it. All right, so then if you look to the left of our website, you will see that we have our supplemental items. So we have our pre-questions, which is in a PDF form, our post-questions in a PDF, our supplement is in Word doc, and our stories in a PDF. And I don't know, Christine, we've been back and forth about this, why we didn't have the pre-questions and the post-questions in the PDF. So, because I know some people have asked about it, and maybe it's just a matter of we need to get on it and do it, but we also have 347 stories that we would have to update. So I think it's just, you know, work there that we have to do. But people do request it, and we are eventually going, I mean, if you email us, we can get it to you for a certain story. But it's definitely one on our radar to switch it over to Word, because I did promise that stuff is in Word and then not all of it. So I apologize for that. And then on the bottom of the page here, and this was a great advice from Jeff Loomis, who I'll talk about later, but he talked about how students who use this program on their phone, this used to be right under the countdown timer. And so if you had a phone and you had those first, second, third readings, they're really close to the left side, that you couldn't really push that play button, and it was really difficult to navigate. So because of that, I had my webmaster move it to the bottom there, so it's a lot more better to navigate it. But there are 3 different recordings, and so the first one is if just to hear the words. And so the person reads it really slow so that you can hear all those words accurately. And then the second one, they read just a little faster, and this is more for chunking and more expression. And then the third reading is for normal speed with expression. Now, because we had to add some levels, and then there were some that were outdated and had to be updated in the text, such as, I know one of the passages, they were talking about Camp Snoopy, and obviously Camp Snoopy is no longer there. So that had to be updated to, I believe it's Nickelodeon World now. Correct me if I'm wrong. So we had to go and change things like that. And so Christine is, if you listen to some of these, Christine actually does the audio for them. So I'm not sure which one she does. You would just be surprised, and you just have to listen to them. Anything to add for this, Christine?
Nope.
All right. So Liz says it's easy to convert MDF to a Google Doc. So, okay. I didn't know you could do that. All right, I'm sorry if the dogs start barking, because my husband is coming home with my son from school, so the dogs get really excited. So if there's barking, I'm sorry. All right, so I'm going to go into this is the supplemental, so I'm just going to kind of break down each section here. But if you open up supplemental, it's a Word document. The first part is closed sentences and closed paragraphs, and this really helps students summarize what they've read. And this is also good prompts for students. So you have your sentences, and then you have a word bank there for words for them to choose from. And then we have a language conventions. And again, this is something that you can take apart and add it to some other digital platform that you want to use for students. So create those little mini lessons. So this one happens to be on practicing using periods and exclamation points. And there are the word prompts again in the word bank. And then in the speaking and listening. So this really supports lower levels, because you have these sentence prompts to help them speak. So if, you can just ask a question, but they might not know how to start it. Well, we provide some starters here. Sentence starters, just they all begin. So they can go ahead and finish that sentence. If you have students who don't need it, then obviously they, won't have to use it. But this is very guided so that those learners can really get that opportunity to practice that speaking. And then in the last part, we do have that, so the pre-reading and the post-reading. The post-reading is assessment, but the assessment is more open-ended questions. So in our actual supplemental, we have the assessment, so excuse me, you hear my son back. Assessment is we have a multiple choice. So we have our questions, and then we have multiple choice answers here for students to pick from. And so this pays attention to language, and students can use inferencing and application. And mixes that the stories have the pre-questions, PDF questions also on top. So the pre-questions are not in the supplemental. The pre-questions are separate, and then the post-questions are open-ended questions. They're not as formal as the assessment in the supplemental, so they're a little different. And then the writing, and to the writing, Mick, is in the post-writing. I believe the writing is also a little more open. It doesn't give you sentence frame or prompts right here. So, but in the text writing, we have 2 different options. So there's the open, and then there's the sentence frame. So again, you can use this for if you have a one-room schoolhouse, if you have students at different levels. This is a great way for your higher students to be able to write, choose a more open-ended question and write it without using the sentence frames. Then if you need sentence frames for your lower students, they are right there, and they're all talking about the same story. So that's a great way to use in your classrooms for that.
And one of the things, the decision that we made was because of the move towards CCRS and evidence-based writing, writing directly, including evidence from the text, we needed to include that. But we also want to honor the type of writing that students do, that they do make personal connections and do some more reflection of their own. So that's why we have a text-based writing option. And then we still have an open-ended prompt so that students can write and connect these topics to themselves and to their lives.
Thank you. All right. So some collaboration. So we have a Reading Skills for Today's Adults Professional Edition, and that is a collaboration with the Family Learning Company, which is a company out east in Boston. I've had the opportunity to meet at least with one of them when I had a conference there, but their website is familylearningcompany.com. What they did was they took our content and they turned it into a web-based software to practice the skills. So they've broken it up into fluency, writing, vocabulary words, everything that we did. They just broke it up into a more independent version for students to be able to practice on. So you can also access their website off of the Minnesota AB Distance Learning website. It is one of the approved platforms on there, and it is a paid software. So I forget how much it was because we are associated with them, but we don't have all the rights of how much is charged and things like that, because obviously they're more for profit, and we're providing the content. So and then they are still working on a future mobile app that they will be available to students. So also a note about the software is that teachers can create classes and monitor student progress. And later on, when Stacy talks about how she uses Reading Skills for Today's Adults, I think she has a couple students that she uses, so maybe she can comment on it if she wants to, and you can ask her about it. And then the other collaboration we have is with CrowdEd Learning with Jeff Gumis. So CrowdEd Learning actually is disintegrating because he has joined with another company. But before he did, he created a big project that included using our content. And I will talk more about that. All right, so I heard this somewhere, but if your butt is numb, your brain is numb. So we are going to get up, we're gonna move, we're gonna take a brain break, and then we're gonna take a 5-minute break after that. All right, so everybody's going to turn their cameras on when they dance to this. So I'm just kidding, you don't have to turn your camera on. But if you all wanna move out of the way, step back a little bit. I'm gonna turn my camera off so you can't see me if I'm dancing.
What's up, my mammals? This is Sid the Sloth from the movie Ice Age, and we're about to do this new dance, the Continental Drift. It's time to get up on your feet. It's easy to do. Just follow me. Move it out. Do the Sid. Take it back. And do the Sid. Step left. Then drift. Step right. And then drift. Crisscross. And do the man-made. Crisscross. And do the man-made. Now jump, jump. Wiggle your rump and walk it out like Granny. To the front and do the Sid. Take it back and do the Sid. Step left, then drift. Step right and then drift. Crisscross and do the man-made. Crisscross and do the man-made. Now jump, jump, shake your rump and walk it out like Granny. Move it out. You got it. Take it back. Oh yeah. Step left. All my mammals in the house. Do it with me, baby. Crisscross. Oh, here we go, yo. Crisscross. Hey. Now jump, jump, wiggle your rump and walk it out like Granny. Move it out. Go, 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 go into the sea. Oh, my mammals everywhere. You got warm blood and grow hair. If you're feeling this new groove, then we want to see you move. It's a Continental Drift, and we do it just like this. Everybody to the front. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Step left, then drift. Now jump, jump, wiggle your rump and walk it out like granny. Move it out. Hey, hey, hey. Step left. Get on your feet, human people. Stop holding up the wall. Crisscross. You got it. You got it. You got it. Now jump, jump, wiggle your rump and walk it out like granny. Move it out. Come on, get down with Sid, your favorite sloth. Hey, all my mammals everywhere. If you got warm blood and grown hair, if you're feeling this new groove, then we wanna see you move. It's a Continental Drift, and we do it just like this. Everybody jump, 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 jump. Everybody jump, 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 jump. Everybody jump, 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 jump. Everybody jump, jump. Oh yeah, so cool, it's cold.
Randy like it.
And this is what happens in the last session of a conference. That was awesome.
All right, sorry, I was having Sid froze out my computer and I was trying to put my camera back on. All right, woo, I'm sweating. Anybody else sweating? All right, we are going to take a 5-minute break. So if you use the bathroom, refill your drinks, go ahead and we'll be back.
What's up, my
Oh,
mammals?
sorry.
This is Sid the
Let's do that again. All right, we'll see you back in 5 minutes. He calls it PD with a purpose. So he is now currently with Edtech Center, and he is a digital learning lead over there. And there's his email if you need to get hold of him. But he is also in charge of a couple other really fun and useful projects. So Skill Blocks, he has that on the website. And I believe they are trying to migrate all those projects that he did over to the Edtech Center, the World Ed website over there. So he was telling me that's going to be quite the job. So, all right, so Edtech Makerspace, they wanted to select high quality open content. They wanted to identify EdTech tools that can make content mobile friendly. And then they want to train educators to use those tools while using the content to create the shareable resources. So if you wanted to check out what the project was, you can head out to this website here. And all this slide and this recording will be available on the Carla, I believe the virtual event planning, or all the materials will be available there somewhere. But you'll be able to get all the links here if you forget what the slides are or what the link is. So what they did was, here, I'll just back up a little bit. So what I meant by training educators to use these tools was that, so Jeff wanted to use Google Form and to use Quizlet and Wakelet. And so you can just teach, you know, you can just do like a presentation on what Wakelet is or what Google Form is or Quizlet is. But how many of you are actually going to use it again, unless you actually use it with your students or you know how to use it? So what he did was by teaching them how to use these tools, he did tutorials. And so the teachers learned how to use it. And then he gave them the high quality open content, which happened to be our Reading Skills for Today's Adults content. And then they took that tool and turned our content into a product. And that way they have now the experience to use that tool, and they're more likely to actually use it again in the future. Where's my mouse? All right. So what they did was they took our reading skills for today's adult supplement. So all the pieces here. And the first part they did was they took vocabulary part and they used Quizlet and they turn it into vocabulary activities. So that way the learners can be engaged in vocabulary in multiple formats. So such as they can learn, they can do flashcards, write, match, set. So let me just show you what it looks like in case some of you have never been on Quizlet before. Apologize, a little slow with Zoom on. Okay. There it is. All right, so if any of you have Quizlet before, you know that your account will show up. So that right now my account is showing up, but what I've been told is that if you don't have a Quizlet account, your students or you can still access these. You don't need an account to use this. What it is right now is you're actually accessing that person's account if you don't have one. So they can do flashcards. So right now it's on flashcards and they can click on it and it tells them what the definition is. They can learn what it is. They can learn what that word is. And then they can practice writing it. They can spell it. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to click through this because it's slow with my Zoom on right now. But we'll go back to right here. Okay. All right. So if you get a chance, go and play with Quizlet. All right. So how are you going to find all these resources? If you have a phone right now, you can actually open up your camera and scan your computer screen. All you have to do is just turn your camera on, and you don't even have to take the picture. You just have to focus in on that QWERTY code there. And it will ask you at the top, a little thing will drop off, says, do you want to open that? And it's going to take you to the web-based app. So I was thinking of, when I hear app, I think of going into App Store or an Android App Store. But this one is a web-based app. So that way it opens up in your browser, not in an independent app. And then that way you'll be able to, so if you bookmark it, you'll be able to have access to that and see all the different things here. Everybody get a chance? And Christine said she will show everybody an example of all that later too. And I'm going to go deeper too, so. All right, so when they designed this, they wanted to design it with a couple things in mind. So they wanted, could other instructors use this resource as is? How can I make certain this is easy to access and customize as possible? And what am I allowed to do with the content being used? And that's why it was really important that whatever content they used, that they were able to use, it had common license on it, or it was open domain. So these are just kind of, so there is a gentleman that was in the cohort, Xavier, and I forget what program he's from. I believe he's down south somewhere, Georgia or something. I don't remember exactly, but they took that content and they kind of altered it for their program as well too. So they even made further alterations on it to adapt it to theirs. So this is something that you could do if you guys have the time to do that. So here is the end result of doing all that, is if you went into the website app, it will show up like this. And what's neat about it is that the app, it will break it down to different skills, or it will break it down into topics. And I believe in each one too, you will be able to go get into the levels. So if you go into health, you'll be able to see all the different levels that the students can pick. So that way, you know, just because it's health, you don't want them to go and read a level 8 if they're not ready for that. So in the Wakelets, there's 345 Wakelets. So it includes the Quizlet for the vocabulary, includes the story, which is the link to our website, and it includes Google Forms, which is the comprehension, which checks for comprehension. And all the resources can be customized. So I'll explain that in a little after this, how to customize each one. And like I said, this is student-facing mobile app. So they wanted to make it that way the students didn't have to go into our website and they can pull up the story, which is going to look a little different than if they actually have it customized. It's much easier it's much more friendly to access. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that the students have access to the online resources. I'm sorry, I'm thinking a different slide. I'm sorry. All right, so to access the online resources, I had asked my webmaster to put this on every single story that we have. So if you go to any one of our stories, right under when I had those resources listed, the Wakelet should be listed right below it in purple. And I wanted him to put in a color that everybody will see that it's on there. If you click on it, it will take you to the Wakelet. All right, so before I explain even more, I'm going to take a little break here and we're going to hear from some of our reading skills for today's adults users. So we're going to start off with Stacy, and Stacy is my full-time EL instructor, and she's going to tell you how she uses reading skills for today's adults. So Stacy, if you're on.
Yes, it's up to me. Hello. So I'm going to answer all those questions. I've used reading skills for today's adults since I started, which is about 1.5 years ago. I use the stories. I use pretty much everything with all the supplements. I've added a few things with it as well. So we read through the stories, we work on the vocabulary. I have them do their writing a lot. We do together as a class. Sometimes they do it in groups as well. I don't know. Trying to think. Yeah, I also use the vocabulary as spelling, and then I make dictation sentences with it, so they have to practice it in another form as well. So,
Do your students use the Reading Skills for Today's Adult Professional Edition? The distance learning?
I have one student that signed up to do that, but she has not used it yet.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Stacy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then the other one we have is Denise Rogers. She's over at AEOA and she's an instructor there. So Denise is going to share.
All right. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, a little quiet, but we can hear you.
Okay, good. I'll speak a little bit louder. That's never been a problem for me to speak a little louder. All right. Well, I just have to say that I've been in ABE for, I think, about 4 or 5 years now. And so I've gone to a ton of trainings. And ever since the beginning, you guys have kind of mentioned Southwest ABE and mentioned this resource. And over time, I just kept hearing it. And then actually another professional, I think from Southwest ABE, actually showed me it. And it just kind of dawned on me, why am I not using this? And so I've been using it ever since. And so I just have to, I have a ton of notes about it because I appreciate this website so much. So just to give you a background. So I service 2 counties. So Aiken County and Itasca County, and that's up north. And so we're very geographically spread out. And so if I only go and see my students once a week, it's really hard to actually help them improve their reading skills that way. And so Southwest ABE gives me that opportunity to give them some resources that they can have on their smartphone or that I can print off for them. Or something, something in the middle, maybe through email, or on a tablet. And so it's helped me get more readings into my students' hands, where before I might have to lend out one of those big, thick GED books. And then I'm not sure if I'll ever get that back from that student. And so Southwest ABE has just helped me get books into the hands of my students, or at least readings into the hands of my students. I have worked through some of the different trainings So for example, I've done language and literacy, trainings before, and I did the evidence-based reading instruction trainings and student achievement and reading trainings and CCRS trainings. And, it's really easy to feel like I'm drowning in all of these trainings and to be kind of afraid that you're not doing it right, that your classroom isn't good, and that you're you're disorganized and you need to cover so much. And so I really appreciate what Southwest ABE has done, because you put out quality materials and you keep making them better. And I can trust that they're vetted, and I can trust that they're good. And they're really easy to add to, too. So thank you for that. And they're just so easy, with the PDFs, they're easy to print. I mail them to my students sometimes. They're easy to download for my students. I email them to my students. I have a binder full of them. And so if I have a student who pops in, I can pull one out and have them read through them. So they're just really great that way. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about one thing that I just loved about the website, and I stumbled upon it, is that they used to have this whole section, and it was all just health and wellness topics, health and wellness readings. And so that's when I was first learning about the value of having a line of inquiry. And so that was really nice, because it's hard to try to find several readings around a similar level on a similar topic. And so I really appreciated that. And I used that for quite a while. And then this summer, I've just had a lot of time to work on this because of, the COVID and working from home and things like that. And so I put together a line of inquiry, and it's how does routine affect our lives? And all of the stories that I use are from Southwest ABE. And it is just fantastic. It's just been really fun to work through that with my students, and to just feel like we're making progress, and they feel like they're growing. So I just wanted to share a little bit about how do my students respond to it? Well, I would agree that if they're very new to reading English, this might not be the right resource for them. Or if they really struggle with, beginning alphabetics, this probably isn't the right resource for them. But, it has been a really good resource for, I would say, if my students are reading at like a second grade level or higher, it's been a good resource for them. And I just have to say that my students actually, they are comfortable with the supplement. And so I get that buy-in to do the homework. And it's so easy for them. So, I'll give them the link for the reading, and I'll give them the supplement. And some of my students will get right onto their email and they'll type out all the answers. And it's really easy to give them feedback that way too. Some of my students have a pen and paper, and so they will write down everything and then they'll text me a picture. And that's been really great. I've been able to give a lot of constructive feedback. And I think the thing that I appreciate is because we're kind of looking at their writing, we're looking at their comprehension, we're looking at how comfortable they are with vocabulary. I can pick out their needs, and then I can find resources to improve them, which has been really great. So, for example, I can very easily discover if my students have weaknesses with their writing or with their grammar or things like that. And I can kind of customize lessons for them based off that, or give them additional resources. So it's been kind of nice to be able to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Denise, for sharing your experience. I'll PayPal you the $20 for all the nice things you said about us.
Okay, well, I
Yeah, that
keep
was
going, but I'll stop because I'm not done with my list. But see, I have to say, qualitatively, my students are participating and they feel more confident from this program, Southwest AB. And quantitatively, I had students who they took the GED ready and they were unlikely to pass. We did 6 weeks worth of Southwest ABE with them, and they were in the likely to pass with a 153. These were
That's
smart
awesome.
students.
I was just gonna say quickly, Denise, that you're just giving so many like on the ground tips for having to use this. We have to talk to you at some point about maybe doing some PD, like, you know, like real ways the teachers can be using this, because this is great. And also your comment about the GED, I'm not surprised. GED testing service actually recommends reading skills for today's adults, the new version in their in much of their PD, especially PD that Susan Pittman and Debbie Fawcett do. So that is great anecdotal evidence to hear. It's really exciting.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Denise. All right, so you're probably wondering, okay, how do I implement this to my program? So you have that Wakelet. There's a couple things you have to do though, okay? Because if you want to be able to access your student scores, you have to do a couple of customization things. So if you go into, but the first thing you need to do is when you make this, you need to put it in an accessible spot so that your students can go and find the Wakelets. Because you can make that app and put it on your website and link it there. We have ours, like I said, we have it linked under supplement there. And then what you can do is when you go into Quizlet, where I showed you, there's a plus button at the bottom there. If you click on that, you are able to add it to your classroom. If you have, and you probably want to create a Quizlet login, but if you create it, I believe it's free, and then you will add them to your classroom. So that way, if your students are working on any things, you can see what they've been working on, and you're able to get that accountability so that you know that they have been working on that. And then if you don't do that, if you just want to have the students work on it, maybe teach them how to screen capture their work so you can see, they can show you proof that they've been working on it. All right, with the Google form, this one's going to be a couple steps. So I'm going to kind of break it down here. So if you go to the Crowded Learning website, and if you scroll down kind of in the middle of the page, you'll see the Get the Instructor Resources. You click on that, and then you will get to another page, and you kind of scroll down a little bit, and you will get to click on the Marshall Level Reading Program Resource Library. And then it will give you a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet will give you all the URLs. And what you need to do is you need to make a copy of it, because if you don't make a copy of it, if you give the students, thanks, Christine. If you give the students this link, the original one, what will happen if they get done with a quiz, you're never going to see the quiz. So if you make a copy of it, and then you, for instance, you customize it more where you have the students put their name or their email address, then you'll know which students completed it. Again, if you don't want to take this step, you can just have them screen capture their scores, because the way we have it set up right now is that it does show their scores and it does show what they did right and wrong. So that way you'll be able to see that. And then you customize all that, and then you put it on your website or wherever it is you want to do. So, all right, Christine's going to talk about how to use this synchronously and asynchronously.
I'm going to give I'm going to give an example, just an example. It already, I already am jotting down things that Denise said for other great examples and ways to use this. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because I want C to be able to answer questions about how to use this for distance learning hours, because that's a really big deal. So this is an example of how I'd use it synchronously and asynchronously using the materials that are provided, including the Wakelet and including the supplement and the Reading Skills for Today's Adults website. This happens to be Stress in My Life, which I thought was appropriate. And it's a level C and it's level 9. So there it is on the website. Go ahead, next slide. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to use Mentimeter. Mentimeter is really, really easy to do polls. You can certainly do polls right in Zoom, but I like to have my students write instead of just clicking sometimes. So it's an example of a lot of people know that the Mentimeter has like the multiple choice polls, but they also have open-ended. And so, so asking the pre-questions that are already provided from the curriculum, what kinds of stress do you have in your life and what do you do to feel stress, so students can type and it's real time and they can see each other's answers as they pop up. And I like to look through and kind of identify the trends. What are we seeing with our, you know, in the classroom? How could we categorize some of this information? Next. So this S means synchronous, so we're doing this together. So there is a word list there of several words. I would really spend time with direct instruction with stressors and stressed, and do a little word family work, and also cope and handle, because they're synonyms and these are really, they're key of the key. So I would do some direct instruction of those words. I would use a lot of visuals, and then I would use sentence stems. Any STAR teachers will be like, yeah, I recognize all this. Like, my biggest stressor in my life is currently blank. One way I cope with stress in my life is blank. So I would use these so that students start working with the words. Next. So this is still synchronous, and then also synchronously, I might read it aloud, or students can read it aloud. It depends on what we're doing. And I would break it up over slides. This is how I usually do reading in my Zoom classes. So I break it up. I usually add some visuals and things so that we can work through it and then clarify any confusing content or vocabulary, while not giving too much information because they're going to do some of that vocabulary work themselves as well. Next slide. So then I want to assign the wakelet. So this is a way of getting hours for synchronous. So you have them on Zoom or Google Meet, and now you can get hours as they're working it out right now, the DL team, for working on the wakelet. So I would assign the wakelet. So this would be asynchronous work. I would chat the link during my Zoom class. I also use Google Classroom. So I would post this with the directions, and I would give them options that I want them to do, the learn, the match, and the test options for vocabulary practice. Optional, they can reread the text or listen to the text again or as many times as they need. And then I would have them do the comprehension check on the Google form. This would all be between the synchronous classes. Next slide. See? Oh, okay. I don't know how many of you use Flippity. I love Flippity. It's very easy to set up. It's free. It works in so many ways. I like the manipulatives template where they can just drag things. I use it for my upper level learners. But I would, once they're back to class, I would do a vocabulary warm up. So I wanted them to do the studying for the vocabulary. And now this is also from the supplement. These are the fill in the blank. So they're different. There's the close paragraph, but then there's also the fill in the blank exercises, and I would have students work on this. Or if it ends up that there's some students who didn't do the work, I might put them in breakout groups to do this and to support each other. Okay, so this is back to synchronous. I would use breakout groups to discuss the speaking activity. So one of the benefits of the speaking activity is to build the knowledge to do the writing, the eventual writing. Or they could complete the closed paragraph together. I'm hearing more and more that teaching students, letting students go into breakout rooms where the teacher isn't and is just dropping in. Once that's part of the routine, students really kind of embrace that, and they run their own groups in the breakout rooms, depending on the level. Next. So I would add an additional text to discuss because I like to do the CCRS Reading Anchor 9, which is comparing texts on a topic. This is a text. So I might pull this up and do a See, Think, Wonder activity. My students really like to work with visuals. They like to see how much that they can notice, and we work hard on being very objective, like tell me what you see, don't interpret. Be objective. That's a really good work skill. And then comparing some of that information to what we're reading. That would still be synchronous in class. So I would do a mini lesson. I would likely do a mini lesson on using the word however. I would contextualize it. So I would be using content either related to the text or content about stressors and different kinds of common things that stress us out. And I would have students work on combining sentences with the word however. Depends on the student. Some of them, I may just have them use it as like the introductory word. If some of the students are a little bit higher level, I would maybe talk to them about the semicolon, especially if their eventual plan is the GED. And the summative task, I would give them some writing options. I would probably include a word phrase bank if they need it, and I would require them to use at least 2 of the words, stress, stressors, cope, handle, and include 1 sentence that includes the word however. And this I would put in my Google Classroom, and then every student has their own Google Doc created for them, and then we can go back and forth for feedback. So in my context, this is something that these are some ideas of how I would get a lot of mileage. Patsy, my boss, always says, take one text and do multiple things with it instead of doing 10 different texts, right? And so I could get a lot of mileage and set up a lot of routines. And in fact, I'm going to start doing this with my STAR students starting next week.
All right, thanks, Christine. Okay, the question that I've had a couple of people ask, and is this DL approved? Yes, it is. So when I talked about the collaboration with the family learning company, when they turned our content into a web-based software, we also got our website approved. So that means that if you print off the passage with all the pre-reading, post-reading, the supplement, and your students complete all that and they return it back to you, whether they return it back to you in person or if they took pictures and gave it to you, they will count as DL hours. And so you can get 1.5 hours. So I took this off the Minnesota AVE distance learning website. So you get an hour and a half from it. It does have the link to our website on here. So our website is all over the place, so you can find it somewhere. Right now, we are working on figuring out how to approve that the online version or the online resources that Jeff worked on. So because the difference is that there's the Quizlet part, which is not in our paper format. And so that one could take a little more time. So right now we're kind of negotiating how much time to add for that. And if any of you have any suggestions or have used this, let me know what you think is. Right now, it's 1.5 hours to do all of those paper formats. And if we add the Quizlet and they did all that, I mean, how much do you think we should add? Another 15 minutes, another half hour? Let me know what you think. You can put that in the chat. But yeah, we have about 6 minutes left here. So if you have any questions that I did not get to, let me know. So thank you very much for coming. I know this was hard as being the last session of the day and of a 2-day week, and everybody's excited it's Friday. So I'm so glad that everybody stuck around. But yeah, go ahead and you can put questions in the chat, or you can go ahead and put your mic on and ask me a question. Hi, Sharon. Thanks for coming. Have a good weekend.
See, I did already make a PDF of the slides and uploaded it into the participation folder.
Perfect. If anybody wants to dance again, I'll put another song on.
That was awesome. I was moving around in my chair big time. Yeah, I was.
I was like, these dance moves are hard. Trying to.
Sarah had it.
Yeah, I was like grooving with Sarah.
Wow.
Nice. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
I can't wait